Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Keep Your Students Enrolled. I have a quick question to ask everyone, just as like a little icebreaker before I get to our introductions. What is the favorite thing you've bought so far this year? If any of you are like me, I'm home a lot. We're working from home and I'm online shopping like crazy and my credit card loves me. So I'm racking up the points. So what is the favorite thing you've bought so far this year? Is it a vacation? What is it? Okay, I will now start with some intros. In this session, you will learn how OTC is building a community for their students to ensure they continue their education. A few housekeeping things to go over. If you have any questions during the webinar, please type them in the chat or the Q&A box, and we will get to them at the end. Please connect with us today using the hashtags MCCA webinar, and we will be sending a recording of this webinar to those that registered today. Today's speaker is Callie Holden, I said it correctly, Assistant Director of Grants and Strategic Planning at OTC, and Abby Benz, who is the Chief Strategy Officer for OTC. Very grateful to have them today. They were going to join us for another seminar earlier this year, but the weather did not allow. So I'm so grateful they worked with us on the fly and we settled on today's date. Glad everyone can join us for today. And oh, stretchy pants. I wanted to get to some of the answers for the question. Forks for my tractor, a shampoo scrubber. These are great. These are great. Keep them coming in, by the way, people. You can keep responding even when we start. Oh, new running shoes. Yeah, I like that, Tammy. So without further ado, I will go ahead and hand it over to our presenters. Take it away.
All right, good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. Callie and I will be collaborating on our proposal today, so she's running the slideshow, but I'll go ahead and get us kicked off. Thank you for the introductions, Callin. Today, our focus is going to be on retention and what we have done at OTC over the past year to really shift our retention model. Callie, you want to go ahead and flip through a couple of the slides? And if you don't know us, there we are, Callie and Abby from the Strategic Planning and Grants Office at OTC. So today, talking about really why retention is key. OTC, like all community colleges, continually focuses on different strategies and supports to increase student retention. And I know over the past year, of course, that's been highlighted. We've really been shifting our focus as a part of the college's overall strategic planning process for the past several years. Our institutional goal at OTC is focused on holistically supporting our students from the time they apply until they reach their educational goal. And that focus goes beyond the classroom and is really a holistic support for students regardless of where they are in their educational experience. So with that goal in place, we've been exploring not only our student experience data, but also how we could reshape some of our student services and interventions through what we've learned. So today we're going to talk a little bit about some of those retention efforts, a little bit about what we're working on, why they've been important for us here at the college, and then also how they relate specifically to some loss points in our enrollment pipeline. So to start our conversation, I'm going to turn it over to Callie, and she's going to talk a little bit more about that enrollment pipeline in some of our student experience data.
Yeah, so one of the things before we kind of jumped into talking about some of our tools specifically that we've been using over the past couple of years to address retention, I thought it would be good for us to think a little bit about how much impact retention really does have on our enrollment. And so our research office has put together these statistics for us that kind of look at what the retention pipeline looks like for students here at OTC specifically. So we've kind of looked at our applicants. If we start off with, say, 100% of our applicants that have filled out our application and we think they have an intention of coming to us, they don't appear they ever went and kind of enrolled at another school. if we start off with this number, we can see that we lose 28% of them between just finishing the application and taking any further steps. And then really quickly, we start to see just how these loss points start to add up. So if we look at then enrolling for their first semester, we've already lost 50% of those original applicants. So for the people who click, apply at the end of the application, we only see half of them actually show up and complete their enrollment. And then whenever we start looking at their time as they're progressing through the school year, to successfully complete their first semester, we've lost another 11% of those students. And so completing that first semester at 39% of our original applicants, we've already seen, almost 2/3 of the potential successful students that we started with, we're kind of down to now just 39% of them. So this shows a really good opportunity where we have a ton of students that we're missing even just before they finish their first semester. And so if we can retain students from that time that they apply all the way through their first semester and then beyond, we can really begin to make significant increases in the retention of our students and the kind of successful outcomes that they have later in life. So this is a really important kind of statistic that we've looked at repeatedly over the past couple of years. Our research office has done a really great job of breaking down not just these kind of loss points, but loss points all along the student experience of where we could make some really meaningful impacts on retaining more of our students. And so the kind of potential that we have in redesigning some of our student experiences is in recapturing some of those students that we lost along the way. A few other data points that kind of have continued to at least stick in our minds as we've put these tools together and made these changes at OTC. So like I said, we've lost nearly half of our students before they even begin classes. Students are often most successful when they feel that they have a meaningful relationship with a college staff member. So really building those relational tools and resources for students was really important for us. And then finally, that we know that students need help most early in their college experience. As they kind of become more experienced college students, oftentimes we're still providing support to them, but the points where they really need us is often early in those times that we work with them. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Abby, and she's going to talk a little bit about our student success redesign.
So in thinking about that data and also significant amounts of qualitative survey data from both our students and alumni, the college began what we now call the Student Success Redesign in the fall of 2020. And I wanted to start just by highlighting a little bit of the mission. And you can see on the screen here, the Student Success Redesign is truly just a formal effort to transition our focus to proactive and holistic supports, really meeting students where they are and helping them the entire time along their student journey with us at the college. So I'm going to start by talking a little bit about some key points in that support system as we look from application to completion for our students and what those shifts have meant for us here at OTC. So with that focus of retention in mind, we've really shifted our focus in the student experience to look at both the application to enrollment portion of a student journey, as well as the enrollment to completion portion of a student journey. And we've done that by simply transitioning some of the workflows and responsibilities of staff members on the student success team. So you can see on the screen here what we're calling student success specialists, and their focus is working with applicants through the process, getting them prepared for enrollment in the semester. And then what we call navigators, who focus on assisting our current students with everything that they need throughout their college experience, really with the goal of helping them not only increase retention, but attain their educational goal as soon as possible and with all the supports that they need. So I wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about what those roles look like and some changes that we've made. So for prospective students in that applicant model, we know that students just want one person to help them. Doesn't matter what they need, it doesn't matter what their question is, but they want that one-stop shop. So student success specialists in that role has been almost flipped in order to serve as that one single point of contact for applicants. So whether or not it's a question about financial aid, a question about what is a best fit program, our student success specialists are tasked with proactively reaching out to their caseload of applicants, which for us has been established either by the initial program of study selected on the application or a student's geographic location here at OTC. So the goal, as you remember back to that applicant data and that pipeline data for student enrollment, is to really start closing the gap. We know we have a significant number of applicants who are interested in OTC, but we're losing several of them along the way and along the journey. So our student success specialists are looking at our applicants, figuring out where they are stuck in the process, where they're stuck kind of in the pipeline, and then reaching out to them proactively. So that is via automated emails and also just the old-fashioned call that sometimes really moves the needle for students in terms of where they might be during their enrollment process. So thinking about that 50% of loss point for applicants to enrollment, the student success specialist model and position has really been transformed to start closing that gap. And I will tell you, we're excited to announce that we actually launched this formally in our team this week. So hopefully we'll have some great stuff to share with you all the next time that we talk about this role. And transitioning into another major area of change for us is what we call college navigators. And this is truly the relationship development portion of our current student experience. And we know that we're losing a significant number of students before they reach their educational goal. And the role of navigator and the role of kind of the entire student success redesign is to begin changing that. And we're doing that through a couple of very specific ways when it comes to this position. But really, the formal base of the college navigator is relationship development. So our navigators are focused on assisting students from the time that they enroll in courses until the time that they complete their educational goal. And this starts with a variety of different things, but has some focus areas and pillars that we know are important to the student experience and is our goal to be able to provide students. So you can see here those 4 proactive support areas that our team is focused on. So what exactly does that work look like for a navigator, and how is it aligned with retention? In thinking about what we know is important, a conversation with a trusted advisor to talk about what your long-term goal is. So what is your career plan? Where are you headed after OTC? Let's talk about that early, so that way our team can support you through every other step of the process in your educational experience. And then, of course, as we know, financial planning for community college students is so key and so critical. Again, we're coupling every single interaction and every single task that we're asking students to work through with a conversation and a relationship development piece with their navigator. So let's talk about your financial circumstances, not just your aid package here at the college, but what's going on outside of the classroom. Are there things going on at home that you're unable to meet some other financial obligations? And how can we support you by connecting to different resources or just talking through things to make a better plan for your financial circumstances while you're with us at OTC? And then lastly, all of those things culminate within the academic plan. So let's talk about your courses. Let's talk about how we can map out that plan to graduation, that plan to goal attainment for our students. And then you'll see the referral to resources at the bottom. And really that's a conversation that's happening all along the way and all along through the student's journey, because you never know whenever something will come up that a student might need that will interfere with their educational experience. So our goal is to be able to have a hub of resources, both internal and external, to support our students. So things like those health, hunger, hygiene needs, all of the things that we know our students are faced with during their time here. We're having conversations about those on a regular basis, and we're able to do that because of that one-to-one relationship that a student has with their navigator. And that really key piece is obviously the relationship development. Our hope and our goal is to be able to get in front of students early and often to develop that relationship So they know where to go whenever they need something, and our job is to be able to accurately provide it for them. So thinking about something else that we're doing a little bit differently in terms of student success here at the college is really modifying not only some of the data that we're collecting, but also how we're using it to support retention. So as we know, some students just need more help. And we have a ton of data on our students, and we know a whole lot about them without them even telling us. So we're really using some data-informed tools and techniques to prioritize how we're reaching out to students, when we're reaching out to them, and some of the guided conversations that we're having. So you can see on the screen some of the early alert data indicators that our team is using. So the items there really help us better understand our students. So when we're reaching out to them, we can have conversations about, hey, you're not going to class. What's going on? Is there anything that we can help with? Is there something, whether it be work or family outside of college, that's kind of weighing on some of your attendance issues? And we're also able to customize these interventions, whether it be through texting or automated emails that talk about very specific things. So if you've had a conversation with your navigator, or you've indicated in the application process that maybe you think you might need more help academically, we're able to push out some custom communications that talk about the tutoring services that the college offers, that talk about community resources that are available. So all of those things are really able to push resources out in front of students early, but then also to follow up with our students with that relationship development and that one-to-one connection that we're hoping to make with our students. And all of those things culminate in some performance metrics and goals that our team looks at regularly and tracks. And we'll talk a little bit about those later in some of the exciting retention data that we'll be sharing with you.
So student success is kind of our long-term goal that we're headed towards, transitioning all of our student services into being this proactive, holistic model. But there are some other tools, particularly this year, that we have used to really increase retention and meet students where they are, as we've kind of gone through a very tumultuous year where things have changed quickly, and we know that students need additional supports. And so a lot of we've kind of thought about some institutional tools that we can use for all of our students, not just the ones that are being phased into the student success redesign, but for any student who's currently attending OTC. So I wanted to take a moment to talk about some of those, because the student success redesign is very comprehensive and reaches students in a really deep way, but these have also been really good at showing positive results for all of our students with a much lighter touch. And maybe a little bit easier to implement than kind of a full redesign of your student services. So there are 3 proactive supports that we put in place as a part of COVID. Callin Campaigns, we revitalized actually the live chat on our website, and then we designed a whole new student support website. And these 3 were kind of the trio of proactive supports that we use to reach out to students as a part of COVID-19, but have been so successful that now they have become part of our everyday practice here at the college, and have really helped us reach students where they are, no matter what program they're in or what classes they're enrolled in. So I want to talk a little bit about the Callin campaign, which has been probably one of the most comprehensive of these other proactive supports. So we started this right after we came back from COVID-19. Like we took an extended spring break. The week after we came back from that extended spring break, we called all of our currently enrolled students. And we have continued calling all of our enrolled students twice a semester, each semester since. So we're now on, I think, our 8th or 9th Callin campaign, and they continue to be incredibly successful. So these Callin campaigns are kind of just proactive reach outs to our students, just to ask how things are going, how their semester is going so far. Is there any resources that we can help connect them to? And even though this seems like it would be a very kind of light intervention, we've actually seen a ton of students respond positively to it, because sometimes they wait until something has become really a crisis before they reach out to us. And by us making contact with them first, they maybe asked us a question that they didn't think was that important, but we were able to get ahead of an issue early and really help that student before it became a crisis. And so that's been something that we've really seen that's been positive throughout those Callin campaigns. We also know that sometimes students just need help navigating services at a college. Sometimes it's really complicated to find exactly the right person on campus that can help you answer a question that you have. So we kind of offer that person on the other end of the phone who can say, oh, you know, I know exactly the person you need to talk to. Let me set that meeting up for you, or let me send an email to them and let them know that you have this question. And we also tried to use our volunteers and our staff who were making these calls to just kind of answer questions as quickly as possible, do as much as we can on the phone while we're talking to students so that we can meet that need immediately before it kind of becomes a larger issue, or before we know that students might get lost between the advice we give them and kind of the next step. Too often, I think whenever students come to the wrong place to ask a question and we send them off to that other place, there's some kind of black hole where they disappear in between our office and that one. So we kind of tried to close that gap by just answering the questions as quickly as we could on the phone, kind of that immediate service, or connecting them directly, kind of doing a warm handoff, rather than just referring on to that other kind of resource. And finally, one thing that is really behind the scenes of these Callin campaigns, but I think has made an enormous impact, is we used a lot of data to inform how these Callin campaigns were set up. And these are things that probably the callers themselves don't even realize. Their calling lists are segmented. We used some risk assessment for students, particularly during COVID-19, where we knew that students had their education change very quickly. We used some of those risk assessments to make sure that students who maybe needed help the most were called first, that students were connecting with a caller who maybe was most likely to be able to help them, whether it's based geographically, they were talking to someone at a campus nearest their home, or based on their program, they're talking to someone who's really familiar with their particular type of program. We were able to use some data to help segment and target those students. And that's been really helpful in the outcomes of those, because we were getting them connected to kind of the closest to the right person for whatever their questions may be. So there were two other supports that we knew would be important as we were transitioning out of COVID-19 and kind of out of the physical classroom into all of this virtual world. We bolstered our virtual supports as well. And so two things that we did as a part of those kind of COVID response, but now has become our everyday practice, is we created what we call the student support website, which is kind of a centralized website. You can get to any of our resources from that one page. You can schedule appointments with any of our offices. You can connect directly to someone on the live chat. You can submit a resource form saying, hey, I have this question, or I need help with this thing, or can I get connected to this service? Students are able to kind of use this self-service site to connect to all of these different resources that previously they would have to have navigated to all the different offices on campus to get to. We were able to kind of make a roadmap or kind of a signpost that got them to the right place, hopefully more quickly and easily than navigating on their own. And the other thing that we did is we revitalized live chat, which is something we had used in the past, but we had kind of started using other options to kind of answer those virtual questions. But we knew that as students were spending more time online and more time on our website, they'd probably have questions that really needed help from staff that are answering them directly, rather than something like a chat bot that's trying to find the answer in the website. So we revitalized live chat, and we were able to have staff on demand 7 days a week with extended hours into the evening, so that we could have time for students to ask those questions, and we could hopefully get them answers really quickly. And so I wanted to touch on some of the outcomes that we saw, and I pulled out spring 2020, which was kind of the times of COVID, because I feel like that's where we really saw some of our biggest impacts on retention. And so here are some of the really successful outcomes that we had from our Callin campaigns, but they also reflect some of those other proactive supports like our live chat, our student support website, all of the work that our faculty did to help students feel supported as they transition virtually. But here are just a few kind of numbers that help show that impact. So whenever we were making those calls, we contacted about 8,500 unduplicated students between 2 campaigns. So we talked to every single currently enrolled student who wasn't within a certain population that already had direct support. So we didn't talk to DSS students or high school students that may already have those supports, but we talked to all of our currently enrolled post-secondary students. Overall, we completed 15,000 phone calls. So anytime that someone called and we got a call back from that student or they contacted us back, we called them multiple times. We're able to collect all the data from those different calls, and overall we ended up contacting them 15,000 times. 50% of the students that we called, we actually spoke to directly. So we got a live person on the other side of the other end of the phone. We were able to help answer those questions and talk to them and help them with any issues they may have. One thing I do want to highlight is that this was a college-wide initiative. So people from every division, campus, center, departmental office, whether they work with students directly or not. I mean, I think we had some folks who were in like our HR department who were even calling. We had 138 different staff who volunteered to call our students throughout the spring semester, and we've had even more who have volunteered since then. And so this was a really great impact to see people across the college who were able to help support these students. And the final thing I wanted to touch on as kind of an outcome of these campaigns is that we looked at our data of students that we were able to directly talk to, that 50% of students who picked up the phone and we were able to actually talk to them. And we looked at that versus students that we weren't able to get a hold of. And then we also looked at it versus students in spring 2019, pre-COVID. And of the students that we were able to talk to, we had a 92% course pass rate, which actually exceeded that of kind of a comparable set of students from spring 2019. So we increased successful student outcomes in spring 2020 over our spring 2019 students. So I thought that was a pretty good kind of snapshot of how some of these different tools can really have an impact on your students.
Hey, Callie, before moving on, a couple of questions have come up in the chat. Can you talk a little bit about the training that we provided for different departments that maybe didn't know the answers to some of the student questions, as well as some of the risk data that was used to segment our calling campaign?
Yeah, I can talk about both those things. So one of the most important things that we knew going into this calling campaign was that we would have staff who maybe don't assist students with these questions all the time as a part of their regular jobs. So we wanted to make sure that we supported them and gave them the resources that they needed to answer questions, directly as they were working with students, or to find the right place to send them to. And so we tried to proactively support, from our team, we tried to proactively support those callers just as much as we were hoping the callers were able to proactively support the students they were talking to. So we developed several different training tools. The primary one that we call the resource hub is a OneNote. And I have a kind of a sample version of it if anyone would like to see a copy. I won't pull it up now because it has a lot of pages and a lot of links, and it gets really into the weeds, but we kind of put this resource hub together that had all of the information in one place. So we had a script for callers. We gave them sample emails that they could send to students. We gave them frequently asked questions. We also connected directly to some of the information on the website, and we showed them how to use all the different new tools like the student support website and live chat to be able to get answers to questions or schedule appointments with students when they were on the phone, even if working with students one-on-one is not their primary role in their normal job. So that was really important to us, and we provided a lot of training opportunities in how to use those different resources. But we tried to kind of make it as simple and intuitive as possible, and kind of give them the resources that they needed right at their fingertips while they were talking to students. As far as data that we used to kind of segment our students, there were some really important data pieces that we knew, particularly in that first calling campaign, just days after we switched from our normal modality into 100% online. We knew that there were a few data points that maybe made students more at risk, or maybe would have a higher likelihood of having questions. So some of the key ones that we used were things that we use in our early alert data for student success. So Pell eligibility, some of the background data, and then some kind of former grades, kind of GPA type data, where we might see that students would already have some academic risk. But there were some very COVID specific risk that we looked at as well. So one of the main things was if a student went from 100% seated to 100% virtual, they may not have a ton of experience engaging in virtual education. So we knew that those students likely were going to be the ones who had the most questions about all of these changes. So they were in a higher risk category and higher up on the calling list. We wanted to reach them quickly, as opposed to students who maybe already were learning online or already had part of their classes online. They may be more familiar with those tools. So hopefully that helps answer some of those questions. Okay, back over to you, Abby.
Thank you. So like I mentioned a little bit earlier, we have had one semester of our student success redesign work complete and have some early promising data and some feedback that we wanted to share with you as we think about those impacts to retention and future next steps. To give you a little bit of an idea on scope, just over 2,100 students currently are served under the student success model. And our proactive and holistic focus throughout our system and the ways that we're engaging with students has had some really promising results. So to give you an idea, our student success teams have had over 8,600 different meaningful engagements with their students. So that could be Zoom meetings, phone calls, significant back and forth email dialogue, but something of substance where their students know that we're here for them to help them along their journey. And we've seen some very, very promising results with the things that we talked about earlier. So financial plans, attendance rates, all the things that we know are important to the student experience. We've been able to see positive outcomes in relationship to those variables for our student success students. So taking that data and also thinking about what we've heard from our students, they like knowing where to go. They like having their one person, and they have reported to us that regardless of what they need, they feel like their navigator or their student success specialist has been able to be there to provide that. I did want to spend a little bit of time highlighting a couple of data points with you as it relates to retention. So you can see here that course success rates, which we define as a C or better for students served under the student success model, have exceeded that when compared to kind of the overall students population at OTC that are not served on the student success model. So just about 2% higher rates of successful course completion for our student success group. And that's made up of, just to give you a little bit of an idea, just about half of those are technical education students and the other half are general education students spread throughout the OTC system. And then moving on to talk a little bit more about fall to spring retention, something that we're very proud of is the impact that we've seen in terms of retention for our student success students. So almost a 72% retention rate from fall to spring semester for students served under this model. And something that we're proud of and excited to continue to implement system-wide here at OTC as we continue to reframe and redesign how we're supporting our students. So with those data points and kind of in closing, we wanted to spend a little time talking as a group, kind of as a guided discussion to learn from each of you and for all of us to learn together about different retention techniques that you may be using at your institution. So we have a couple of questions here, but we'd love to be able to talk as a group via the chat. And so the first one, we've talked a little bit about what OTC has done differently and how we're rethinking retention, but would love to hear from attendees today some ideas and different strategies related to retention. And it might be hard to discuss via the chat, but Callie and I will work to kind of moderate your comments as they come through, or feel free to ask any additional questions that you might have related to our presentation as well.
It looks like other colleges have also been doing several Callin campaigns. Have you guys found those to be just as successful as we found them? Looks like they did. That's great. I really liked that new intervention that we've implemented for our students. I think I've had more than one student tell me as I'm talking to them that, you know, we called at just the right time and we were able to answer their question, and they were so thankful to get to talk to us. So I hope you guys have had that same experience.
Looks like Beth is, are other colleges utilizing a type of freshman seminar class to support initial student engagement and answer student questions in addition to a student success type of plan? And Stephanie, as a response to your question, OTC is not using Ellucian retention currently, but we're working on some different early alert and application tools. Great point, Denise. We agree with you. We have had a lot of conversations related to technical needs for our students and loaning out laptops and hotspots and how to support our students in that particular capacity, not just this semester, but as we think about moving forward.
I think that one thing that kind of in COVID we learned, but is a lesson to kind of take past, you know, the time when COVID it's kind of behind us, is how important technology really has become for our students. You know, I think COVID opened up our eyes on a few things that we kind of always knew were a little bit important, but we really understood how critical they were whenever kind of they became the crutch that we needed to get through COVID-19. So technology was definitely one of those.
I think we had one other guided discussion question. Callie, if you want to share that with the group. Any other proactive interventions that you want to share, things that have worked well, maybe things that we've all had those that we thought would work really well, maybe they didn't work so well. Thank you, Stephanie, for sharing for your students that text seemed to be the way to go, not email or not phone calls. And Denise has shared free tutoring links for every class. Great point. A lot of valuable resources for our students that we can continue to highlight.
It looks like Denise says that they're going to start texting all their students in the summer, which is really cool. And opportunities, Beth's college, they're using opportunities in nursing and allied health orientations to talk about what they can do to support students, which is also cool. And if anyone wants me to send them a copy of some of our Callin campaign resources that we've put together, I'm always happy to share. We've set up some that are external and don't have any student protected information in them. So if you drop your email into the chat, I can add you into the email list and send that your way as well.
I think that is all that we have formally planned today, but are happy to answer any questions that you might have or any additional conversation. And thank you to MCCA for a volunteer for a recap email. We will take it.
And Abby, the streamlined website they're talking about, is that when you click I need help on your website and it takes you to
Mhm.
students? Okay, I'm going to share that link really
Yes.
quick. I wanted to ask though before I shared it. So if you go to OTC's website, you'll see a big button that says I need help. I mean, that's perfect. And you click on it and it takes you to this site that I just shared. And then there's a translator on there as well, isn't there? I think I saw.
And also, when you go on OTC's website, you'll see a little pop-up box that's for live chat. And so that's something that Callie talked about earlier today. So you can type in any question that you might have, and you will be actually connected to a real OTC staff person that's working, whether it be, financial aid, student services, student accounts, you name it. We're able to connect you with a direct staff person to get your question answered.
That's fabulous. And, I think just what students need. And I love the texting. I am a texting fool. I hate emailing and phone calls over texting. Texting is number one for me. So kudos for that. Okay, well, please keep, we do have another question. How did you manage the calling campaign, i.e. shared spreadsheets, CRM, et cetera?
Yeah, so we're in the process of getting a CRM in place, but we unfortunately don't have it all ready to roll out yet. So we kind of had to use a few of our tools to build our own kind of very specific, quick kind of CRM for this particular job. So we used a combination between Google Sheets to share all of these calling lists. We used Qualtrics, which is our survey software, to set up some calling forms to collect that outcomes data from the different calls. And then we used a little bit of some old-fashioned just kind of organizational structure. So every calling campaign, we organize folks onto calling teams of about 8 or 10 people, and they have kind of a team leader who helps answer any questions and support them while they're making their calls. And then we also communicate with all those team leaders from our office to help answer any questions that they don't know the answer to, or help kind of shuffle calls around if something happens. So kind of through some structured support, we're able to hopefully catch those things and help as quickly as possible. So that was kind of our main tools that we used.
I think one good thing also to talk a little bit about, Callie, is in the event that a student did have a question or had a need that maybe needed to be kind of triaged up to an additional layer of support, whenever callers filled out their calling form, they were able to kind of click a button that says, financial aid, please reach out to this student, or student accounts, please reach out to this student. And then an email would automatically be sent to that department. So they knew that there was a student in their queue that had a need, and they were able to reach out to them in real time to be able to follow up.
Yeah. And it would send all that information just directly to that office. So they knew who the student was, what the caller and the student had talked about. And maybe we asked callers to put any information they could in the kind of form for them, so that we were able to get all that information just in the click of one button straight to the place it needed to be. We couldn't streamline that process for all of the potential needs, but the biggest ones, which were emergency funding and financial aid, two areas that are very specific and that it's not really possible for each caller to answer those questions. We were able to send that directly to where it needed to go.
Great. And if you guys have these resources and you want to send them to me with your slides, like I said, we will of course send this, a copy of this webinar, the recording, and any resources that you give us. We can share that in the recap email that we send out to everybody that attended.
Yeah.
There's one question, is it important to reach students in ways they prefer? I mean, I'm not the expert, you guys are, but I say 100% yes, because you want them to actually read it.
We're currently auditing all of our communications to students, Beth, to talk about exactly that thing, how to reach students in ways that they prefer, and also how to make sure that they have access to the most important information, whether it be via email or other platforms. So great point.
Yeah.
And yeah, I agree. I have one event where I have to reach students, and it can be hard through email sometimes. So I don't get their phone numbers, so I don't get the pleasure of texting them, which I just said I would prefer. But yeah, so thank you very much. And please, I will wrap up here. But if I see any more questions pop up, please keep asking and I'll shut up and go to the questions. So keep them coming if you have them. But while we wait, I will go ahead and go over some upcoming events we have. First of all, I want to thank you both again so much. And I'm so glad that I said Callie's name right. I rehearsed it before, before the presentation. But we do have some upcoming events that I would like to share. We have a webinar actually tomorrow at noon called Got Wellbeing, Designing a Campus-Specific Wellbeing Program with Thaddeus Montero. And on March 18th, we have a faculty goal setting webinar with Omid Fatuhi, Dr. Omid Fatuhi. And on March 18th, we have a happy hour geared towards faculty. The conversation topics will revolve around faculty burnout. So we have been rolling out these happy hours and we're trialing different parts of the day to see what works. But you can bring tea, water, wine, tequila, whatever you prefer and is appropriate for you. And it's kind of just a time to vent and talk. It's a safe space to talk about the times that we're going through. And on March 25th, we have a panel with all of the female community college presidents and chancellors, and it's called Women Supporting Women. And so you guys actually have the opportunity to send in questions of your own, and we will ask those of the panel and they will answer them. So it's kind of a fun little thing for Women's History Month, actually. And that was Bobby's idea, our communications director, and I absolutely love it. And those presidents and chancellors jumped on the opportunity. I mean, they each got back to me within like 5 to 10 minutes. So that tells you how anxious they were to connect with the members. Let me see, did we get any more? Oh, great information, thank you. So yes, and do go check out their website. It is a really great website and it's easy to navigate. So if we don't have any more questions, again, we will send a recording of today's webinar and any resources that these women send me. We'll send it out via email to everyone that registered, and you can share today's experience on social using the hashtag MCCA webinar. Really quick, next month is Community College Month. We are great, and the work you guys do at community colleges is amazing. So be looking for communications from us on how you can share how great community colleges are with the world. I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks for joining us. Thank you to the presenters. Don't blow away if it's as windy where you are as it is here. Thank you all very much.